Am I the a-hole for not planning anything for Father's Day after my husband ruined my first Mother's Day? I'm like 98.7% sure that I am not the a-hole here, but if I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it and learn from my mistakes. Our little boy will be 1 late this summer, so this was the first Mother's Day and Father's Day for both me and my husband. My husband asked what I wanted for Mother's Day. I didn't want or need anything big or expensive. What I asked for is for my husband to get up with the baby and get him fed while I pumped and honestly just chilled. Breakfast in bed, just toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee. For us to take the baby to the zoo for the first time. This was the main thing I was looking forward to, and then go to my favorite taco place for dinner. Between morning and afternoon naps, we have about 4 hours of awake time. The zoo is about 30 minutes away, so I had figured if we left as soon as he got up from his nap and ate, we'd have a couple of hours at the zoo, and worst case, he could sleep in the car on the way home. So we took my mom and my mother-in-law out to brunch the weekend before to celebrate them, his mom on Saturday and my mom on Sunday. I also got them each a thoughtful little present and some flowers, just to mark their first Mother's Day as grandmothers. I arranged everything, and I let my mom and mother-in-law know that we'd be celebrating on the actual day with just our little family. I even sent a group chat, including my husband, my dad, and father-in-law, just to make sure everyone was on the same page. My mother-in-law is, well, very pushy and overbearing, so I really didn't want there to be any surprises or confusion. The Saturday before Mother's Day, my father-in-law sent my husband a text with a picture of all the mulch he just had delivered and said something like, "Gonna be a busy weekend," or something along those lines. Apparently, he had 300 bags of mulch. They have a big yard with lots of flower beds. That night, my mother-in-law called my husband and asked him to come over first thing in the morning to help his dad move the bags of mulch to where they were going to be used. She said, since we weren't going to the zoo until after our little guy's nap, that my husband could go over and help for a couple of hours and then come pick us up to go to the zoo. I was obviously not happy, but she guilted him and said my father-in-law was going to end up hurting himself if he moved all that by himself, and that it's not a big deal and should only take an hour or two. I told him his mom was doing this to try and get us to skip our plans and spend the day with them, but he just kept saying it's not a big deal, saying his mom promised it would only take a couple of hours and so on. I think most people know what happened. My husband went over first thing, which means, yeah, no breakfast in bed and I had to get up to feed the baby. I was kind of pissed, but whatever. I spent some time with the baby, and then, when he went down for his morning nap, I texted my husband to let him know he should start wrapping things up. Then, when the baby woke up about 2 hours later, I called my husband to tell him I'd be ready to go as soon as I finished feeding the baby. He told me it was taking longer than he expected, but that he'd hurry. Like, an hour and a half later, my husband called and said they weren't done, but he was getting ready to come home. It's like a 15 to 20 minute drive from my in-laws' house. At that point, we'd missed the window to make it to the zoo, so I told him to just stay there and finish and not worry about Mother's Day since he hadn't done a single thing I asked for. I don't think there was any doubt in his mind how pissed I was. A little later, his mom called and said since we decided not to go to the zoo, that me and the baby should go hang out with her while the boys finished with the mulch. I admit that I was pretty pissy and told her I had no interest in spending time with the people who decided to ruin my first Mother's Day. I ended up staying home and ordering a pizza and binging Netflix. When my husband got home, he was all apologetic and asked how he could make it up to me. I was still pretty pissed and told him he could make it up by not ruining my first Mother's Day. I also told him he should plan on spending Father's Day with his mom and dad because me and the baby were going to go celebrate Father's Day with my mom and dad. Since Mother's Day, my mother-in-law has been texting and calling, but I've just been keeping the conversations short and giving, honestly, just very bland and generic responses. My husband has been apologizing and asking what he can do, but honestly, I just don't want to bother. I know it's just a day and we can celebrate any time like we did with my mom and my mother-in-law, but it was my first ever Mother's Day. And it's not like I asked for anything expensive or difficult. The only difficult thing is he's like totally incapable of setting boundaries with his mom. And she's just incapable of considering anyone's feelings but her own. So, this past Saturday, he asked if I was still planning to go to my parents' house, then said he'd actually like to go with us. I told him he could do whatever he wanted, but since I hadn't done anything for his dad, maybe he'd want to go see him or something. In the end, we both ended up going to my parents' place and spent the whole day with them. Honestly, it was actually a really nice day. My dad, of course, insisted on grilling because, well, of course he did, but the weather turned out to be great and we spent a lot of time just hanging out on their deck playing with the baby. I'm honestly not sure what, if anything, my husband did for his dad. I mean, I know he was getting a lot of texts during the day and I'm guessing most of them were from his mom. She did send me this kind of snippy text, saying it was hurtful to spend the day with my family at the expense of my husband's, but I just told her she got to spend Mother's Day with her baby boy, so it's only fair that I get to spend Father's Day with my family. I know my husband was hurt that we didn't really acknowledge him for Father's Day, but I told him, while we were driving to my parents' house, that I'm just matching his energy. I'll admit, I haven't really done anything to de-escalate the drama, but honestly, I'm still just so hurt that he keeps prioritizing his mom's feelings over our little family. And this isn't even the first time his mom has pulled stuff like this. I'm just so tired of it. She always oversteps and insists on doing whatever she wants. I'm getting better at keeping her at arm's length and holding my own boundaries, but my husband is just absolutely incapable of it. I've had a lot of people asking for an update, so here we go. This weekend, my husband and I sat down and talked about everything. I expressed to him just how incredibly upset and disappointed I was at how both Mother's Day and Father's Day turned out. I really wanted to recognize and celebrate my husband for Father's Day every bit as much as I hoped he would recognize and celebrate me for Mother's Day. He said he knew he shouldn't have gone to his parents on Mother's Day, but didn't know what to do since his mom was pressuring him and saying if his dad got hurt, it would be his fault. He admitted that he knew he messed up, and honestly, he's been terrified that I was going to ask for a divorce. Since he cut to the chase, I told him that if this is how our life is going to be, I don't want to stay married to him. I explained to him that I realized that while, yes, I was upset about what happened on Mother's Day, that isn't what is making me feel this way. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. This kind of behavior from his mom has been happening since before we even got engaged and has just escalated. This has been happening for years. As someone here suggested, I had listed all the times and events, well, at least the ones I could remember, that she had overstepped or just completely ruined. For our freaking honeymoon, she called him twice a day, every morning to find out our plans for the day and then every evening to hear how the day went. Plus the constant texting, asking for pictures, telling him how much she missed him. I don't know how I thought this was acceptable. She tried to make our wedding about herself, tried to make my pregnancy about herself, tried to take over when we brought our son home, just constantly inserting herself and overstepping. I told him that I don't really want to get divorced right now, but if it's going to happen anyway, I'd rather get divorced now while we can still do it amicably. Because if nothing changes, I'm going to end up so angry and resentful that it would make divorce very contentious, and honestly, I don't want that for our son. At this point, we were both crying, upset, and just really emotional. So, I told him that I'll give him some time to decide what he's going to do, but if I don't see clear effort being made to start prioritizing me and our son, then I'd move forward with the divorce. And the change has to continue. Every time we've fought about this in the past, he's promised he'll change, and sure, sometimes he has, but then his mom pulls him back into her orbit. I can tell he's freaked out and really stressed about the idea of putting hard boundaries in place or distancing from his parents. And I do feel for him. He said he feels like he's caught between a rock and a hard place, and that me and his mom are both putting a ton of pressure on him and both have conflicting expectations. And that's fine. He just needs to understand that I'm not tolerating this anymore. I know this will cause an absolute shitstorm with his parents, but honestly, I feel like if we don't do it now, it'll just be harder down the road. What does everyone think? Am I being unreasonable? Are there other boundaries we should put in place? For more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe.